Earlier tonight, you had a caller that called in and was complaining about the loss of the fairness doctrine and the increase in media in our modern age. And I just wanted to comment that basically he was making the old argument that of the paradox of choice, that too many choices confuse the consumer, which, of course, we know is entirely BS. It has no actual
I'd like you to explain that when we return, if you can hang on, because it sounds plausible on its face. Oh, those consumers, they're just so clueless. They don't know what they're doing, so give them 2 choices rather than 20. 855-450-FREE. Sounds believable. Why is it wrong? We'll come back with more. It's Free Talk Live. Crichton, you were telling us there was a fallacy of some sort, or some sort of economic mistake that was made by a caller earlier who was suggesting that having fewer choices is better for the consumer. He was giving as an example news channels, comparing the 60s where there were maybe 4 or 5, 3 or 4 channels, to today where there might be 20 or 40 or something like that. And you were going to answer that. Go ahead.
Yes, the paradox of choice is the theory that as the choices among a particular product increase, say like shampoo, the greater confusion that the consumer has, because the consumer doesn't have as much time to research those products. And so as the products increase, the difficulty of coming to a conclusion, a good decision, become more difficult. Well, we know that this is a falsehood because as choices increase, so does the consumer feedback. And a wonderful example of that in our modern world is the eBay reviews and feedback system. Like on eBay, your choice of your product isn't so much what you're looking to buy, but who you're looking to buy it from, because you probably already know what you're looking for. Your choice is really about who do you trust to buy it from? Who's going to give you one that's not broken? And you end up going and you looking at those eBay seller reviews to make an informed decision on whether or not the price that they're giving you is an honest value, or if it's a scam. And you have to make that decision with that information. Well, that makes the eBay reviews makes that fairly easy. I mean, it's still possible to end up getting something that you didn't expect. But
Crichton, I don't know if that's the best example. At least, coming from the perspective, I'm going to try to put myself in the shoes of the caller earlier, somebody who believes this idea that choices are bad or that fewer choices are better. Giving the example of eBay doesn't really work because, at least in the examples we were talking about, like if in a grocery store, for instance, you're looking at the deodorant aisle. I mean, there's a bunch of choices there, and the average person isn't going to know whether or not Speed Stick is a better brand than Old Spice or something like that. They're just going to know what they've heard from people and or what level of research they've put into it. Of course, the average person probably doesn't put that much research into the underarm deodorant.
I can tell you, without competition, you won't see more choices and innovation in the deodorant market. I think that it's safe to say that deodorants today are better than deodorants 100 years ago. But if there was only one government deodorant manufacturer, that deodorant would likely be the same deodorant from 100 years ago.
It's probably true. Crichton, any final thoughts?
There's no reason for it not to be. But here, let's change examples. Like the example of a radio show host, talk radio.
No competition there.
There's the idea that the consumer is a listener. Well, what is the feedback that matters? Well, it's the ratings, of course, because the ratings determine how well you can advertise for a particular show. If a show is giving out false information that's easily provable false, then people who listen to it will begin to distrust it. The ratings will go down. The market corrects itself because that guy is not going to be on the radio anymore.
That's the best. I think that's the best point. And thank you, Crichton, for the call tonight. I appreciate the time for the explanation on that. That the market, even though there may be a lot of choice, that we wouldn't want it any other way, because the only other option is regulation of whatever that market is, whether it's television stations being only 3 or 4, or it's dozens of radio stations versus 2, or dozens of choices of deodorant versus 3. as long as the market is in charge of making the decision as to what's the best, and the market's you and I making our individual choices about what we like, as long as that's what the regulatory structure is, then things will ultimately work out for the best. And that doesn't mean the best for the companies offering the deodorant. Some of those guys are going to go out of business because they just didn't smell right or didn't protect for as long as they said that it would protect or whatever. But having some central bureaucracy in there making the decision that, oh, we need this deodorant but not this deodorant, or this TV station but not this TV station, leads to disaster, and it leads to even more falsehoods being put on the air because those companies are protected by the government.
Yeah, the market is a very harsh mistress. I would say a lot harsher than the government, actually, because
it's sink or swim out there for sure.
It really is. I mean, I would much rather the market be regulating things than the government. Companies die so much faster. Don't even get started.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.